This video will contain spoilers for my adventures with Superman. Superman isn't Jesus, he's actually an entirely separate guy, and yet, for about half of the character's existence, you'd have been forgiven for making that mistake. 1978's Superman was a cracking watch, but the film's very conscious positioning of Kal-El as a Christ analogue, Krypton as heaven, Jor-el as the father, all that, kickstarted a decades-long fixation on building Christian allegory into Superman stories, a fixation that rarely elevated those stories, and in fact, Christian-washed, is that a word? The character's original Jewish cultural substrate. Despite this, or perhaps in part because of it, Robert Revington argues the film used Christian symbolism to get Superman more attention in popular culture. Donner, Puzo, and Reeves' film was of course a smash hit, changing the way people saw Superman, impacting both the general public and comic book readers too, some of whom would go on to become comic book writers. Successive generations picked up and ran with the allegory, or at least its imagery, the latest case of this being visible in the self-sacrificing, T-posing soups of the now-defunct DCEU, with Henry Cavill's Clark reenacting Gethsemane, Van der Weyen's Pieta, and that whole resurrection thing across a handful of visually spectacular but thematically muddy Zack Snyder films. Sorry, that's tautology. Across a handful of Zack Snyder films. If all of this is blowing your mind, good news. I did 2 videos going in depth on the above like a year ago, which are both linked below, so feel free to catch up. But if you did see those, you'll remember the general conclusion was that sure, characters' symbols can evolve and take on new meaning over time. That's fine, that's natural. But that in the case of Superman, the way this external layer has been taken for granted in the wake of 78 has ended up limiting Superman's symbolic evolution and restricting the visibility and employment of existing meanings which predate Superman as Jesus. At least on the big screen, this particular use of the character has pretty much displaced any other ones, including those nearer the character's original direct action, champion of the oppressed vibe, or the rich possibilities offered by that Jewish substrate. All that was widely true a year ago, but it might not be anymore. A lot has changed in the last 12 months when it comes to Superman. Since the last time we touched the topic on this channel, Henry Cavill's DCEU Superman made his big comeback in Black Adam's post-credit scene, and then the whole DC shake-up happened. James Gunn and Peter Safran came in, and Cavill went out again. On the one hand, it's kind of a shame that the talented Cavill didn't get a chance to take his Clark in a different direction. His performance was never the problem here, it's one of the best bits of Man of Steel, but on the other, his canning was to facilitate Gunn's forthcoming Superman legacy. We don't know tons about that film just yet, it's still like 2 years away, maybe more, depending on how long the studios prolong these strikes for, but everything we do know suggests the film will be a lighter, more optimistic take on the character than the burdened messianic demigod of the DCEU. But the biggest, most interesting, and perhaps most telling way Superman's cultural standing has changed this year only kicked off about 2 months ago, over on Adult Swim, as a certain 10-episode cartoon series began to air. My Adventures with Superman released in the latter half of summer 2023 to that rarest of responses, widespread acclaim from the online superhero community. Sure, that acclaim's not quite universal, a lot of people didn't love this take on the Rogues Gallery, at least visually, but people liked this a lot. It isn't hard to see why. Adventures is young-hearted and kid-friendly without being juvenile, with a real kinetic energy that flows through showstopper action sequences and simpler scenes of dialogue and interaction alike. It's clearly anime-inspired while still feeling idiosyncratic, and that's as true for the characterization as it is for the visuals. Lois is still clearly Lois, ditto Clark, ditto Jimmy, but they're all kind of amped up to a degree that the anime style not only works, but feels like the perfect fit. On top of that, the show manages to hammer home a far simpler point that's so often lost in these adaptations. Superman stories can be really cool.
You're not even human! You turned me into a monster!
You chose to be a monster, Ivo.
And what does that make an alien freak like you?
Don't you read the paper? I'm Superman.
Holy shit, this show's so fucking good. But in my opinion, the show's biggest accomplishments are also its least visible. For one, making the oldest secret identity juggling love story in the book feel fresh and exciting after nearly a century of retellings is an achievement very easy to overlook, and for another, the show's managed to put forth a vision of Superman, a vision that again has been very widely embraced, in which Superman isn't Jesus. 3.
He said it! He said it!
Adventure's vision of Superman swings away from that Reeve through Death of Superman, through Smallville, through Returns, through Snyder pattern. Not loudly, not performatively, but subtly and naturally. Clark isn't driven by any sense of divine, i.e. Kryptonian purpose.
You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards. They will race behind you. They will stumble. They will fall. But in time, they will join you in the sun, Kal.
No, to quote Mxcanic on the channel Discord server, he has no fucking clue why he's here. There's no recreated Renaissance artwork, no oh-so-subtle crucifixion shots, and Krypton is certainly no heaven. Superman is a Superman, a man with amazing powers, with an unshakable moral compass, and a steel will, but a man all the same. This is the highest profile adaptation, sorry CW, to put forward a take like this in quite some time. Or rather, to not put forward a take like this.
90% of people believe in a higher power, and every religion believes in some sort of messianic figure. And when the savior character actually comes to Earth...
That's why Adventure's readjustment doesn't feel jarring, doesn't feel like a statement. It's not even that the show is doing something in particular, it's that it isn't. And the resultant negative space leaves room in Adventure's take on Clark for other readings to breathe and grow. Some of these are new. Again, that anime layer isn't just a visual one, and while I have next to no knowledge on the subject whatsoever, I've been assured by people who do that there are a few ways to read Adventures through an anime lens, to take this Superman not as Jesus, but as an archetypal shonen protagonist, fighting his way through an increasingly difficult succession of foes, needing to unlock new powers, unlock his potential to do this. But alongside this, the show also creates Superman as a shoujo-style magical girl protagonist, a la Sailor Moon, picking out the tropes shared between that genre and the Superman mythos, the romance, the dual identity struggle, and giving them that anime twist. The show isn't subtle with these stylings, giving Clark a full-on magical girl transformation when he gets his suit, or so I'm told. But some of these other readings aren't new. There are echoes of that 30s and 40s champion of the oppressed here. Clark's following Lois in pushing hard-hitting, plutocrat-exposing questions to the high society types. Superman's unconcerned with the damage he did to Ivo's tech bro company. And again, spoiler alert, the main series villain turns out to be the US military. Clark is more interested in simply helping people than abiding by the letter of the law, or even the American way, a rallying cry that originated not with Superman creators Joe Siegel and Jerry Schuster, by the way, but with the wartime radio serials. And this is perhaps clearest in the way he's able to sympathize with, even aid the more reluctant criminals, in a way that sort of feels like a reception of that old 1939 story in Action Comics 8 when Superman tried to lift those delinquent kids out of the cycle of crime instead of simply dropping them off at juvie. And of course, it goes beyond this too. Roy Schwartz describes the Jewish resonance of Siegel and Schuster's creation in the following terms. It's a story about an immigrant born with the Hebraic name Kal-el, who comes from the old country, changes his name to the uber-waspy Clark Kent, and hides his cape like a tallit in his pants. He decides at any given moment which side of himself, not just personal but also ethnic and racial, to share with the world. He can decide whether he shows it or not. That's the Jewish immigrant's experience in a nutshell. So for Adventures to return to an emphasis on Clark's double life, the identity juggling we'd not really seen for a while, to add in the idea that Clark's scared that people will see him differently, more negatively should he reveal his whole truth, is to breathe life once more into that original Jewish substrate, and that's not it. The Superman of Adventures helps, improves the world, not through teaching or setting an example or making weighty decisions, but through constant work, through doing stuff. He does the big things, stopping the invasion, clamping down on the dangerous stolen tech, beating Ivo, but just as important, he does the little things too, saving cats from trees, stopping robberies and car crashes, all that. All this feels less Jesus, more Tikkun Olam, a Judaism-derived concept important to contemporary Jewish culture and morality, which translates as repairing the world. But Adventures doesn't just rehash the long-established basics of the Jewish Superman reading. No, here, too, there is growth and newness. For instance, Clark's lack of knowledge around the matter of his Kryptonian origin, the fact that one of the through lines here is a quest to change that, to uncover his history and heritage, means the show becomes a timely update to all this, turns this Superman from merely a reflection of the Jewish American experience in 1938 into a character uniting that experience with that of many young Jewish Americans today. This journey of rediscovery, of digging up their familial and cultural past, what their immigrant ancestors went through and why they had to, both in the old world and in the US of times past, a rediscovery becoming ever more important in the face of the creeping re-emergence and re-acceptance of Nazi ideas and rhetoric across the world. And none of this is to say that there's no grounds for a Christian or Christological reading of Adventures, because, well, there is. There are more than a few echoes of Superman as Jesus here. There's plenty of turning the other cheek. There's even a sacrifice and resurrection type sequence in the finale, but they are just that. Echoes, discontinuous moments, emphatically not the breadcrumbs for any wider metaphorical or allegorical project. That finale sacrifice isn't to save us from our own sins and mistakes, no, it's to save us from killer alien robots. And this really is the key. It's not that Adventures is committed to any specific vision of Superman in particular, new or old, and it's not that it's committed to walking back any of them either. After a long fixation with Clark as Christ analog, Adventures simply finds an older, more natural symbolic balance re-emerging. So Superman as Jesus hasn't been expunged or anything, it's just not the idea anymore. It's one idea, a relatively minor one among others. And in a fitting reversal of that supersessionist trend we talked about last time, it's more or less subordinated by the re-emergence of those Jewish resonances. The pendulum is swinging back, returning to equilibrium. Because, and everyone say it with me, Superman isn't Jesus. You might think that's a lot to take away from one season of one new show, that the symbolic balance of Adventures doesn't necessarily point to anything so wide as a return to a non-Jesus-y cultural equilibrium for the Man of Steel, but there are a few reasons to believe this might be the case. Let's go back to James Gunn. His DC entry shook their production pipeline up, but Adventures showrunner Jake Wyatt said that after Gunn had seen what they were working on, he just let them cook, with quote, no interference and a lot of approval. That surely bodes well for the future, surely suggests that on some level, Gunn and Wyatt see this character and what he represents in the same way. But that's not all. Gunn's pick for the live-action Clark we'll see in Superman Legacy is David Corenswet, who is himself Jewish. Of course, the ethno-religious background of the actor doesn't tell us much of anything about how his character will be presented in the film, but, well, let me throw it to Neil Turitz for a second, who, writing for AboveTheLine.com, had this to say on the matter. Corenswet's casting comes at a key moment in our culture. I have written about this here before and been mocked for it by at least a few of you, but anti-Semitism is on the rise across the globe, and especially here in the US. There were more anti-Jewish hate crimes in America last year than at any time in the last 40 years since the Anti-Defamation League began keeping track of such things. Now, do I think that a Jewish actor being cast as the Man of Steel is going to change any of that? Of course not. But it is absolutely a step in the right direction. The future is uncertain. Who knows how we'll all picture Superman in 5-10 years' time. But I think there is reason to hope that that pendulum is swinging back, and that equilibrium is re-emerging. Superman isn't Jesus. And maybe someday soon, that won't need to be pointed out anymore. I should quickly clarify here that those other layers I touched on earlier, anime Superman, the Jewish substrate's role in Adventures, all that, there's obviously a lot more to talk about there than I did, but you know, I'm not really the right person to deep dive either topic. Someone who's able to, for instance, close read Superman's magical girl transformation sequence against what that trope usually signifies should do that, should make that video. And someone who can speak authentically about the Jewish American experience today, how it's echoed in Adventures, should make that video. I'd love to watch both. I should also point out that this was September's Patreon community video, meaning the topic was suggested by and voted on by my Patreon supporters. And if you want to have a say in the topics for these bi-monthly videos, while also helping me continue to do this, the algorithm feels particularly brutal these days, and that's when the videos aren't getting arbitrarily demonetized, please do consider joining up yourself on the link down below. Or, if you're not bothered about picking topics and just want to support videos like these, you can do that in a more streamlined manner via a YouTube channel membership. You also get like badges and channel emotes there. Who doesn't want to be able to spam irony notes in chat during a video live premiere? But all that aside, thanks for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please do like, share, comment, all that if so, and shout out as always to all my channel supporters on screen now, especially Daniel Goldhorn, Karen Kuhlman, Magath, Brian Emily, Something Capitalism Bad, Thomas R, and Weirdy Beardy. See you all next time.